Look, Knicks fans have been on a roller coaster lately. About 2 weeks ago, everyone in New York was losing their minds, in a good way.
Let's go Knicks! Let's go Knicks!
The Knicks started the season on fire with a 9-game winning streak. They had Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns running pick and rolls that nobody knew how to stop, and suddenly the Knicks were looking like the potential contenders. I'm talking legitimate excitement, fans talking about the finals in November level excitement. Even I was thinking, okay, maybe this time the hype around the Knicks is real. Fast forward to now though, and they have dropped 5 of their last 7 games. Their record is still pretty good at 26-15, placing them 3rd in the East. So it's not like I'm pressing the panic button for the entire season. But if you look a little bit closer, there is a stat that's kind of terrifying for a team with playoff aspirations. They are 2-8 against the NBA's top 8 teams, and they are 0-5 against the top 2 teams in each conference. That's not exactly a sign of a powerhouse that is ready to destroy everyone when the stakes are the highest. And of course, New York fans have been in this spot before, so there's some understandable skepticism. Last season, the Knicks finished 50-32, also a strong regular season record, but then flamed out in the postseason. So while this year's hot start was nice, it's not nearly enough to make anybody truly confident. The first red flag is pretty obvious. It's the team's bench production, or more specifically, lack thereof it. Tom Thibodeau has a reputation for running a tight rotation, and it's showing in the numbers. The Knicks' starting 5 of Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns has logged a whopping 688 minutes together. That's not only the highest total in the league, it's way ahead of the second place lineup, which sits at 430 minutes. That gap is huge, and it perfectly illustrates how dependent this team is on its starters. You might say, hey, there's a positive side, they can handle it. Sure, but there's a difference between playing heavy minutes in January and surviving a grueling playoff series in May. If your starters are always running on fumes by the 4th quarter, you are going to have problems. Even more worrying is that the Knicks rank near the bottom in bench scoring. It's not a coincidence. If your bench is only getting limited time, they never develop any sort of rhythm or confidence. Then when you really need them, say your star guys are in foul trouble or just plain tired, the bench can't give you what they need because they're not used to being on the floor. Tibbs has been hearing it from the fans for years. Play the bench more, diversify the rotation. But if you have followed Thibodeau's coaching career, you know that's not exactly his thing. This is the guy who famously overplayed his starters in Chicago and Minnesota. Long term, it tends to backfire, especially when you run into the deeper teams who keep fresh legs on the floor. Before I take a look at how Thunder exposed the Knicks, make sure that you are subscribed to our channel. We put a lot of work into these videos, so a sub from you would be very appreciated. Now let's talk about what happened against Oklahoma City, because that might be the best evidence for what can go wrong when you rely too heavily on 1 or 2 guys. The Knicks faced the Thunder twice in a short span, lost both games, and had their weaknesses put on full blast. But New York's problems went beyond simply running into the league's best defense. Specifically, OKC figured out how to contain the Brunson-Towns duo that had been tearing everyone else apart. If you look at the game on January 3rd, Towns didn't attempt a single 3-pointer. That's wild for a guy who might be the best shooting big man in the history of the sport. So, how did OKC pull that off? They decided not to guard him with a traditional big. Instead, they used guys like Jalen Williams, smaller, quicker, more versatile defenders to stay glued to Towns, preventing those pick and pop looks that he usually feasts on. Throw in switch heavy defense and well-timed help rotations, and suddenly the Knicks' favorite 2-man action was completely neutralized. Brunson was forced into tough isolation plays without the threat of Towns popping out for an open 3. The result is a clunky offense that couldn't get into a rhythm. A week later, the Knicks faced OKC again. You'd think they would adjust after seeing that strategy once, but apparently not. Towns attempted just 2 3-pointers, meaning the same basic defensive scheme was still causing problems.
Now on Bridges. There's Williams on Towns.
Towns goes back to get it. Shot clock winding down.
And here is the scariest part. Once you take that Brunson-Towns pick and roll away, the Knicks don't really have an effective plan B right now. They tried running pick and pop with Josh Hart as a screener, but Oklahoma City was practically begging them to do that. Hart isn't a lethal threat from the outside, so the Thunder could collapse on Brunson without worrying about Hart popping out for a triple. It was the same script, same result. Speaking of guys who are supposed to stretch the floor, Mikal Bridges. He's been having a rough time from beyond the arc lately. Until the Detroit game on Monday where he shot 6 of 8, in the previous 5 games he had a patch of 4 for 34 from 3. That is a brutal number. And it's all the more painful when you consider that Bridges is usually one of the Knicks' most reliable shooters. He's normally around 37% from deep for his career, but right now he's at 34%. Some are pointing to a slight tweak in his shooting form, which might be messing with his consistency. Others say maybe he's just tired because once again the man is playing heavy minutes every single night. Whatever the cause, the Knicks cannot afford for Bridges to be a non-factor from 3. His presence is crucial for spacing, especially when Towns and Brunson draw so much defensive attention. Now there is some good news on the horizon. Mitchell Robinson should be returning soon from his ankle surgery. Robinson gives the Knicks an extra dimension in the middle. He is an elite rim protector who can also grab rebounds and block shots, stuff that Towns, for all his offensive brilliance, doesn't excel at. The interesting question is how Thibodeau is planning to use Robinson once he's fully healthy. Will we see them try a lineup with 2 bigs putting Towns alongside Robinson, like Cat used to play next to Rudy Gobert in Minnesota? That could help secure the paint defensively while letting Towns focus on scoring. Or do they see Robinson as a bench anchor so Towns can get some actual rest without the team completely imploding? Personally, considering Knicks' bench production, I would love to see the latter. There's another idea, which is actually moving Robinson to a different team, as we see rumors floating around already. Also, Towns could be used more creatively, even if that means letting him handle the ball a bit out of the high post. When teams switch everything and neutralize his pick and pop game, it would be great if he could pivot into a playmaking role, kind of like how Nikola Jokic punishes doubles by picking you apart with his passing. Towns is definitely not Jokic, but he's certainly skilled enough to get others involved. That goes double for the playoffs. We all know that once postseason starts, the pace slows down, physical defenses ramp up, and teams rely more on mismatches and half-court execution. If Towns could adapt drawing extra attention and then kicking the ball out to guys like Bridges, assuming Bridges remembers how to shoot, he could become the key to unlocking the Knicks' playoff offense. And that's really my main point here. The Knicks look great on paper, and even with their recent losses, they're still piling up enough regular season wins to comfortably stay near the top of the East. But as we have seen in previous years, regular season success doesn't always translate to playoff success, especially when the schedule toughens up and every coach is out there making targeted defensive adjustments. The Thunder exposed a strategy that other contenders could easily copy. Teams like Boston, Cavs, or Milwaukee, pick your poison in the East, have enough defensive versatility to do something similar and force the Knicks into plan B, plan C, whatever. The most important question is, do the Knicks even have those backup plans right now? Let me know in the comments below how would you fix some of these issues. Also, drop a like on this video, subscribe to our channel for more. I hope you enjoyed my hotel aesthetic, and I'll see you in the next one.